The first time she rode through Red Willow Valley, dust curling behind the borrowed wagon like a warning she didn't yet understand. She told herself this was temporary, just another stop, another job, another place she wouldn't let sink its hooks into her heart. The land stretched wide and unforgiving, all sunburned hills and wind-bent grass, the kind of country that made promises it didn't keep. And as she clutched the letter that had brought her here, Nanny wanted for widowed rancher, one child, room and board included. She believed every word she told herself. She was just passing through. Nothing more. Caleb Hart was watching from the fence line when she arrived. Tall in the saddle, hat pulled low, eyes sharp as if the prairie itself had taught him caution. His ranch house stood behind him, weathered boards, a porch that had known too many quiet evenings. And when he tipped his hat in greeting there was no smile, just a nod that said he'd buried too much to waste kindness on strangers. She noticed the way his shoulders stayed tight, like a man braced against loss even when none was coming, and she wondered briefly what kind of woman had once stood beside him, then told herself it wasn't her concern. The girl appeared last, peeking from behind the porch post, small boots dusted white, dark hair tied with a ribbon that had been mended more than once. Her eyes were too old for her face, the kind of eyes that had watched sickness steal a mother away and leave silence behind. When the child stepped forward, Caleb rested a hand on her shoulder. "This is Lily," he said, his voice rough as gravel, and Lily studied the newcomer like she was deciding whether to trust the sun to rise again. That first night settled heavy. The ranch quiet except for wind whispering through dry grass and the creak of beams. She unpacked in the small upstairs room, plain bed, single window, the kind of place meant for work, not dreams. She reminded herself of rules learned long ago. Don't get attached, don't ask questions, don't stay longer than needed. But downstairs she could hear Lily coughing softly in her sleep, and something inside her shifted, just a little, like a fence post, loosening in the soil. Days found their rhythm quick enough. Mornings early, coffee bitter, chores shared with silence. Caleb spoke only when necessary, his grief worn like a second coat. Lily followed her everywhere, helping with small hands, asking careful questions, testing smiles the way one tests ice. And slowly laughter returned to the house. Not loud, not often, but enough to startle them both when it came. She told herself it was just the job. Children needed warmth, needed consistency. She was good at providing that without wanting anything back. The ranch itself felt alive under her hands. She learned the sound of cattle moving like a slow river, the way the sky changed colors just before a storm. Caleb watched her from a distance, measuring, surprised perhaps, at how easily Lily clung to her skirts, how quickly the child's nightmares faded when a calm voice was there to chase them away. Once, while mending a fence, he said quietly, "You're good with her," and the words felt heavier than praise, like gratitude edged with fear. One afternoon, when thunder rolled far off and shadows stretched long, Lily tripped and scraped her knee, blood and tears mixing fast. Before anyone could think, Lily ran straight to her, arms tight, face buried against her waist, sobbing, "Mama, it hurts." The word landed hard, sharp as a gunshot in the open air. Caleb froze. The world seemed to hold its breath. She felt the child trembling, and instinct took over. She soothed, she rocked, she whispered comfort. But inside her chest something cracked open that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, the word echoing, "Mama." She told herself it was a mistake, a child's slip, grief, confusing names. She would correct it gently tomorrow. She had to, because this was not her life, not her family. And yet, downstairs, Lily slept peacefully for the first time in years, and Caleb sat alone on the porch long after dark, listening to the wind, wondering when a stranger had started to feel like the answer to a prayer he'd never spoken. The morning after the word was spoken, the ranch woke beneath a sky stretched pale and wide, the kind that made a person feel small even when standing strong. She corrected Lily gently, just as she'd promised herself. "I'm not your mama, sweetheart. I'm just here to take care of you." And Lily nodded, too quickly, like a child agreeing to something she didn't believe. Her smile stayed but dimmed at the edges, and that small change followed her through the day. Quieter steps, fewer questions, the weight of loss returning like a shadow that knew the way. Caleb noticed it too, though he said nothing, only worked harder, longer, riding fence until the sun bled into the hills. Grief had taught him silence, but guilt had a louder voice. By evening the wind rose, carrying dust and the smell of rain that might never fall. Supper passed with polite words and space between them. The house felt larger when Lily went to bed, emptier in a way that pressed on the chest. Caleb finally spoke, low and careful. "She didn't mean harm, you know," and she met his gaze across the table. "I know," she said, "but it can't happen again. This job, it has lines," and he nodded, though his jaw tightened, because he'd built his life on lines once too, and they'd all been crossed by death. Later, alone, he stood in the darkened parlor, staring at a faded photograph of his wife, her smile still alive in silver tones, wondering if loving again meant betrayal or survival. Time moved strange after that, slow in moments, rushing in others. Lily tried hard, calling her by name now, but at night the child's cries returned, thin and frightened, and more than once she found herself sitting by the bed until dawn, whispering stories, brushing hair back, doing all the things mothers do without thinking. Caleb watched from the doorway once, unseen, his chest aching with gratitude and fear tangled tight. He'd sworn he wouldn't let anyone close enough to leave again, yet here was this woman, stitching his broken household together with quiet patience. And he knew the danger in that, as well as he knew the land. The ranch faced trouble come early fall. Cattle spooked, fences cut, signs of rustlers testing boundaries. Caleb grew tense, sleeping little, riding armed. The past had taught him how quickly peace could turn to violence. She sensed it in him, the way his eyes scanned the horizon, the way his hand hovered near his gun even at supper. And one night she asked about it, not prying, just present. He told her stories then, about losing his wife to fever, about holding Lily while the doctor shook his head, about swearing that pain would never own him again. The words cost him, but saying them eased something too, like finally setting down a heavy load when the rustlers came. It was fast and loud, hooves pounding, shots cracking the air, chaos tearing through the calm they'd built. She grabbed Lily and hid her in the root cellar, heart racing, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. Above them the world exploded, shouting, gunfire, the sound of men and animals running wild. Lily clung to her, shaking, and without thinking she wrapped herself around the child, shielding her with her body, murmuring, "Mama's here. Mama won't let them hurt you." The words slipped free without thought, born of fear and love and instinct, older than reason. By dawn, it was over. Rustlers driven off, one cow lost, one fence broken. Caleb came limping back, blood on his sleeve, but alive. When Lily ran to him she cried, "Mama said she kept me safe," and silence fell thick as dust. Caleb looked at her then, really looked, saw the truth written plain in her eyes, saw the exhaustion and fierce relief, saw the way Lily fit against her like she belonged there, and something inside him shifted, grief loosening its grip, making room for something dangerous and hopeful. They talked that night, honest and raw, no pretending left. She confessed her fear of staying anywhere too long, of loving anyone enough to break. He admitted his terror of needing someone again, of letting Lily love someone who might leave. The words tangled between them, but so did understanding. He didn't ask her to stay, not yet, and she didn't promise. But when Lily woke from another nightmare and reached for her, she didn't correct the name this time, and Caleb heard it from the hall, his chest tight, his heart answering before his mind could stop it. The season turned slowly, leaves burning gold along the creek, the ranch healing, Lily laughing again, calling her mama openly now, daring the world to take that away. And each time the word sounded, it carved a deeper place in her heart, a place that felt less like loss and more like home. Caleb watched them together, knowing the truth even if he hadn't spoken it yet. Some things chose you whether you were ready or not, and the prairie, wide and patient, had a way of deciding who belonged where. Winter came down from the mountains like a slow verdict, frost silvering the grass, breath turning white in the mornings, the ranch shrinking inward as the world grew harder, and with it came the truth she could no longer outrun. She wasn't just filling a role anymore. She had stepped into a life, into a child's heart, into the quiet spaces of a man who had learned to survive without hope. Letters from town sat unanswered on her desk, reminders of other paths, other jobs, other versions of herself that suddenly felt thin and distant. She watched Lily practice her letters by the fire, tongue caught between her teeth in concentration, and felt the ache settle deep, the kind that came before a choice that would cost something no matter which way it went. The reckoning arrived on horseback one grey afternoon, a man from her past riding in with news and opportunity, a position in the city, better pay, easier work, a future she had once wanted badly, Caleb stood on the porch while she spoke with the stranger, his face unreadable, but Lily sensed the shift, clung to her skirts, eyes wide with fear she knew too well. That night, Lily asked in a small voice if she was leaving, and honesty forced its way past her fear. She said she didn't know. The child cried then, deep and broken, the sound of it cutting straight through every defense she had left. Caleb found her in the barn before dawn, the smell of hay and horses wrapping around them. He didn't plead, didn't bargain, he simply told the truth. He said Lily had already lost one mother, and he would not lie to her about the risk of losing another. But he also said this, that some loves were worth the risk, that the land had taught him nothing stayed safe, only real. His voice broke when he said, "Lily needs you, and I think I do too." The words hung between them like a promise neither had dared speak before. She answered him, not with words at first, but with action, by walking back into the house, by kneeling in front of Lily, by taking the child's hands and saying softly that she wasn't going anywhere, not today, not tomorrow, not if Lily would have her. The relief that followed was fierce. Lily threw her arms around her neck and sobbed "Mama," like it was the most sacred word she knew. And this time she held her tight and said, "Yes, I'm here, I'm your mama." Choosing the truth of her heart over the safety of distance, the town gathered come spring, curious and smiling, watching as Caleb and she stood side by side. No grand ceremony, just sunlight and wind and witnesses enough. Lily between them, in a dress sewn by loving hands. When Caleb took her hand, there was no doubt left, only gratitude, only the knowledge that what they were building had grown from loss and chosen hope. The preacher spoke, vows were made simple and strong, and when Lily called them both Mama and Pa, the sound carried across the valley like a blessing. Life settled into something steady after that, not perfect, but real. Storms came, fences broke, arguments flared and faded, but love stayed deep and rooted. She learned the land as her own, learned Caleb's silences and smiles, learned that motherhood was not always blood, but always choice. And every night, when Lily fell asleep, safe and sure, she knew she had chosen right. The prairie didn't feel so wide anymore. It felt like it belonged to her, as much as she belonged to it. Years later, travelers would pass through Red Willow Valley and speak of the Heart Ranch with warmth, of a cowboy who laughed more than he once had, of a woman who moved like she'd been born to the land, of a girl who grew strong and kind under a sky that had once seemed too big. And they would never know the cost of the choices made there, only the beauty of what remained. And when Lily grew older and asked about the day she first said "Mama," she would smile and tell the story gentle, of fear and love and learning to stay, of a cowboy who found hope again, and a woman who learned that some families are built not by chance, but by courage. And the prairie wind would carry the truth of it on and on, across the open land, where belonging is not given, but claimed.